Well, hi everyone. Jim Weatherall here. I'm the VP of Data Science and AI at AstraZeneca, one of the founding members of the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine, and absolutely delighted to be launching our new partnership today. So I'd like to talk to you a bit about how data science and AI works in our R&D environment at AstraZeneca, and specifically how we use that to turn science into medicines. So a little bit about me, just so you know who I am. I'm originally a physicist who then became a consultant, who then wanted to take data science and AI skills and techniques and apply them in the life sciences. So for the last decade and a half or so, that's where I've been working, and most recently in this role, heading up data science and AI for R&D. I strongly believe in the power of collaboration to achieve our scientific goals, and you see that here with some of my academic affiliations and associations with other organizations, and most recently, as I said, delighted to be a founder member of the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine. So just a quick tour today through an introduction to AstraZeneca research and development. As I said, how data science and AI factors into the way we discover and develop new medicines. Therefore, what the opportunities are for a partnership such as the CCAIM, and just some closing remarks on the importance of collaboration in achieving what we want to achieve. So simply put, R&D at AZ is about pushing the boundaries of science to deliver life-changing medicines. So you can read the rest of this slide for yourself, but really the focus for us is on research, is on science, is on innovation, and inventing differentiated new medicines that are going to make a meaningful difference to the lives of patients around the world. We do that in two broad areas. On the one hand, we go very deep in terms of oncology, and eliminating cancer as a cause of death is a huge goal for us across a number of different tumor types and patient populations. And on the other hand, we look at a whole raft of diseases around cardiovascular, renal, metabolic conditions, respiratory, neuroscience. So we have a very sort of broad and deep portfolio of diseases and medicines at any one time that we're always pushing forward. We're always trying to find the next breakthrough. And we're very global. So you see here our sort of major global centers in terms of our research and development footprint, and our three principal hubs in the US, the UK, and Sweden. And really should give a quick special mention here to our new Cambridge R&D facility, which will actually be officially opening later this year. So in the context of the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine, the AstraZeneca Cambridge R&D hub is, I mean, the timing's fantastic. We're launching them both in the same year, effectively. And so how does data science and AI factor into the way we do R&D at AstraZeneca? Well, the short answer is there are opportunities everywhere, and this is driven by the fact that we see an exponentially growing and diversifying set of data streams that are being generated these days from many different sources, only a few of which are shown on this slide. And we're finding ways for them to have potential impact at all stages of the discovery and development of our medicines. So that's the pipeline that's shown along the bottom, from the research and understanding of disease to the designing of molecules to tackle that disease, and to the lab and clinical testing of those medicines that has to be complete and successful before they reach the patients that need them. So lots and lots of opportunities. And the way we think about harnessing this data is that we're increasingly moving from looking at these data types as individual experimental data domains to linked domains where we increasingly find new scientific findings and test scientific hypotheses at the intersection of these data sets. And ultimately, we want to move to a world where this data is all interconnected in such a way that machines can reason over them, and we can use cognitive computing algorithmic or artificial intelligence to be able to find out things and draw insights that perhaps we couldn't do before. Today, we are, by some estimation, around the middle of this pink arrow, and hopefully this helps to explain the direction we want to go in. And so here's a slogan that we like, that we think sums this up quite nicely. And again, you can read the words for yourself, but I would just say that artificial intelligence in healthcare and medicine is not only here to stay, but also it's going to be a differentiated advantage in the future, such that from our point of view, organizations that are involved in the development of medicines are going to be differentiated with AI, and those that utilize it and get its full impact are going to be the ones who are most successful. So how does that vision look? How do we think about these different impact points for data and AI in the R&D of medicines? And I'll give some examples in a moment. But I think to frame it out, we think about it in one of these three areas. So on the one hand, we can think about data and AI as accelerating research and development through automation. So perhaps using computational or AI-related techniques to replace otherwise manual or labor-intensive processes. So that can help us speed up our development pathways and develop the medicines more quickly. On the second category, we can think of AI as enabling our science, enabling and augmenting the work of our scientists through essentially decision support and using advanced analytical techniques to be able to democratize the use of AI in such a way that our scientific decisions are powered by this every single day. So this can help us to make more accurate decisions when we're doing research and development. And thirdly, the Holy Grail is really implementing AI in such a scaled and broad way that it can completely transform potentially the way we develop medicines in the future. So exciting opportunities here for AI in the development of medicines, and you can think about it in these three different categories. So what does this look like in practice? Just a couple of examples from what we do today, just to sort of bring this to life and hopefully provide a springboard for the kind of projects we're going to be doing in the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine. The first one is around using retinal fundus images to predict cardiovascular risk. This is really quite exciting, using the image of a retina without other measurements to be able to effectively estimate all these other things that are shown on this page, such as age or blood pressure or HbA1c, to act as a surrogate for those to be able to accurately predict cardiovascular risk. So these new, more accurate, less invasive ways of predicting, diagnosing, forecasting disease and outcome is incredibly valuable for outcomes for patients and the role that medicines and interventions play in maximizing and optimizing those outcomes. So this is really exciting, and in the future we think it might even be possible to do this with the camera on a smartphone, so it could be very accessible all around the world. Second short example here is around diagnosis of NASH, so non-alcoholic steatotic hepatitis, so a liver disease. The thing about NASH is it's a stage in the progression of liver disease. It can often be asymptomatic, and it can be very difficult or impossible to ascertain whether a patient is a NASH patient without an invasive and painful biopsy of the liver. So we think machine learning has a real role to play in these non-invasive techniques, and in this case, identifying features which again are clearly highly predictive, highly accurate of a NASH diagnosis for a patient without having to take that invasive physical liver biopsy. So important to ascertain when a patient does have NASH. In this case, the impact for us would be, among others, that if we're recruiting patients for a clinical trial in NASH, then we want to be sure this is a NASH patient. And to be able to use techniques like this, potentially as a replacement for existing biopsies, is tremendously exciting. So you can see the sort of impact that AI is starting to have and will continue to have in the future. These are 2 examples among many, and there will be many more going forward. So what does that mean the opportunities are for the Cambridge Centre in AI and medicine? Well, in short, they're right the way across this chain. I talked about this R&D pipeline before. You can see the stages laid out again here. And there really are opportunities. There really are scientific questions. There really are decisions to be made that could be accelerated or made more accurate by AI right the way along this chain. If I maybe just focus on 3, just because they happen to be ones that we've been discussing in recent months. One is around clinical trials and using machine learning to help predict things like individual treatment responses as opposed to average treatment responses. So to be able to better understand and define subgroups of patients and drive forward personalized medicine strategies. So tremendously exciting. And in fact, we already have a PhD as part of our ongoing partnership with the University of Cambridge, with Mihaela's team, to look at this area. Second example to provide is longitudinal treatment pathways. So when medicines are out there and being used, they form part of a pathway, part of the treatment journey, health journey of that patient. We think there's a lot of opportunity there to look at all the data that's collected across a wide population and use that to inform what is the very best treatment and lifestyle decisions for that patient at each point in their journey. So really to treat diseases and treatment as a very longitudinal, dynamic process, and using AI and machine learning to optimize this process. And the third example for now, it's labeled on here, radiogenomics. That's really a kind of stand-in for this multidimensional biological big data that we have to deal with these days. So maybe it started with genomics, but now we have other ways of understanding different levels of biology, such as data from transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, and also radiomics. So data from medical and biological images. And we're starting to put all this data together. It's very large, it's very complex, it's very high dimensional. And so we need advanced techniques like machine learning and AI to help us look for patterns in that data, identify new mechanisms and causes of disease, new biomarkers, new endotypes. And I think a lot of that is locked in these very, very complex high dimensional data sets. So 3 areas there, but of course, there are many more. I just call those out as examples. So what of the power of collaboration? I think this is kind of where I started when I was talking about my own thoughts and how important I think it is to collaborate to deliver the best science. And I'd like to end here as well. And so here's some of the evidence, if you like, speaking of data and science, as to collaborations that are active with AstraZeneca in 2020. And you see here, there's hundreds or thousands, depending where you look in the world. And the UK is one of the most prominent places where we do scientific partnerships with academic organizations, with biotechnology organizations, with other companies and other industries. And that's because of the strength of the science and the opportunities that are there in the UK. And of course, what we're launching today really feels like the pinnacle of that from the academic perspective in the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine. And I'll just leave you with these thoughts. These words are actually unchanged from our R&D story. So this is messaging that we use to talk about what's important for us in R&D. And actually, I looked at this and I said, these things are equally important for the Cambridge Centre in AI in Medicine. We want to work in an inspiring collaboration. We want to be curious. We want to harness the latest and greatest in data and technology. We want to work seamlessly. So when we get these projects going, we want it to, when you're in the thick of it, for it to not really matter whether you're a researcher from the University of Cambridge or AstraZeneca or GSK, because we're trying to solve common problems and common challenges. And we always must keep the patients who will ultimately benefit from this foremost in our minds. So I'd like to leave you with those thoughts about the power of collaboration for the Cambridge Centre for AI in Medicine, and happy to follow up. And if anybody would like to do so, please reach out to me.